You know the scene, right? George Bailey running through the snowy streets of Bedford Falls, yelling Merry Christmas. For so many of us, it just isn't the holidays until you've seen it. It's a Wonderful Life is the ultimate feel-good classic. It feels so pure, so straightforward.
And hey, that's not just our opinion. The American Film Institute literally ranked it the single most inspirational American movie ever made. It's more than a movie, it's a cultural landmark. But the story behind the camera? Oh, it is anything but wonderful.
Because, and you might want to sit down for this, when It's a Wonderful Life first came out, it was a complete and total disaster. A box office bomb that didn't just lose money, it actually bankrupted the people who made it. It was basically left for dead. The story of how it came back to life is honestly more surprising than any angel getting his wings.
Alright, so to really get how this movie had such an incredible second act, we first have to dig into its disastrous first one. Let's rewind the clock to right after World War II. So you've got this dream team, okay? Three of the absolute biggest directors in Hollywood, Frank Capra, William Wyler, and George Stevens. They get back from the war and they are just done with the old studio system. So they start their own company, Liberty Films, so they can make movies they believe in with total creative control. And their first huge project, their big swing, was this passion project of Capra's, based on this little story a guy had self-published on Christmas cards. I mean, this film was everything to them. It was a massive all-or-nothing bet on their entire dream. And they lost. They lost big. Now, what's so wild about this is the comparison. Look at the film that crushed them at the box office, The Best Years of Our Lives. And get this, it was directed by William Wyler, one of Capra's own partners at Liberty Films. Wyler's movie cost way less, made an absolute fortune, and just swept the Oscars. Meanwhile, Capra's film with its giant budget, it didn't even make its money back. And the critics? They weren't any kinder. You know, the very thing we all love about the movie today, that warm, fuzzy, sentimental feeling, well, back then, they saw it as a weakness. The New York Times literally called it Pollyanna platitudes. It turns out that after the war, people wanted gritty realism, not some heartwarming fantasy. And that brings us to the bottom line. That number right there, a loss of $400,000. Now that may not sound like a ton today, but in 1946, it was a kill shot. It completely wiped out Liberty Films. Capra's dream of an independent studio was over. He had to sell the whole company and its one and only film to Paramount. And for all intents and purposes, that should have been the end of the story for It's a Wonderful Life. But it wasn't. Decades later, the movie's fate was changed forever. And not by an angel, but by a simple, forgotten piece of paperwork. So this is the real mystery, isn't it? How does a movie that completely failed, that just faded away, suddenly become the most beloved Christmas tradition in America? Well, the answer is kind of bonkers. It's all thanks to a legal loophole that nobody saw coming. This timeline here lays it all out. See, back in the day, copyright law was different. You'd get 28 years of protection, but then you had to actually remember to file for a renewal. Well, in 1974, that 28-year alarm clock went off for It's a Wonderful Life, and whoever owned it just forgot. They didn't renew. And just like that, poof, the copyright vanished.
And when a copyright expires, the work falls into what's called the public domain. And that's just a fancy way of saying it doesn't belong to a studio anymore. It belongs to, well, to everyone, to us.
So what did that mean, practically? It meant local TV stations, who are always looking for cheap stuff to air around the holidays, basically hit the jackpot. They could play It's a Wonderful Life over and over and over again, and it wouldn't cost them a dime. And boy, did they. For about 20 years, it was on constantly, every December. It just became part of the furniture in people's homes. Because of that, an entire generation grew up watching it, not knowing it was some old flop, but just thinking of it as that cozy Christmas movie that was always on. Even Frank Capra himself couldn't believe it. He said it was the damnedest thing he'd ever seen. The movie he thought was his biggest failure had been completely resurrected by accident. But the story doesn't stop there. Just when the public had fully embraced this movie as its own, a bunch of lawyers found a really clever and kinda controversial way to snatch it right back. So how do you even do that? How do you put something that's public domain back in the bottle? Well, it took some brilliant legal jujitsu. Republic Pictures figured out that, okay, maybe the copyright for the film was gone, but they still own the copyright to The Greatest Gift, the original short story it was based on. Then, they also bought up the rights to the film's musical score. And using a Supreme Court case as a weapon, they argued that since the movie was a derivative work of the story and the music, two things they controlled, they now controlled the whole film. And just like that, the party was over. In 1993, they started charging money again, and NBC swooped in and signed an exclusive deal. So you've got this wild journey, right? From a financial failure to a public treasure to a valuable corporate asset. It's an incredible story. But there is one last secret, one more twist in this film's history, and it has everything to do with the ideas at its very core, like this amazing defense of the common man from George Bailey himself.
Hold on to your hats for this one. Back during the Cold War, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI, yes, that FBI, actually opened a file on It's a Wonderful Life. They flagged it as potential communist propaganda.
What on earth was so dangerous about Bedford Falls? Well, think about it from their point of view. Who's the villain? It's not a foreign spy. It's Mr. Potter, a greedy, cruel, rich banker, a capitalist. And who's the hero? George Bailey, who runs the building and loan, which is basically a community collective built on helping people, not making a profit. The FBI was worried the movie was trying to demonize bankers and champion a kind of collectivist spirit that to them sounded a little too much like communism.
So, the movie that you and I see as this beautiful tribute to family and community was, at one time, seen as a genuine threat to the American way of life. It forces you to ask a pretty wild question. Is It's a Wonderful Life just a simple holiday story? Or is it one of the most successful pieces of anti-capitalist art ever made that got smuggled into all of our homes for decades, all because somebody forgot to mail in a form? It's a thought that kind of changes how you see the richest man in town, doesn't it?